Hello and welcome to Mystic Visions. This is a daily pick a card reading for December 24th, Christmas Eve. Merry Christmas, everybody. The purpose of this reading is to give you a brief piece of advice or to help guide your overall focus for the day. And if you are looking for a longer, more detailed reading, just check out my channel. There's plenty there. If you are new to pick a card readings, the way this works is that you'll choose from one of the three piles here, and then you'll scroll down in the description and click on the timestamp for your choice, and it'll skip ahead in the video to your specific reading. Now, if you do feel compelled to choose more than one card, that is totally okay. Just use your intuition here, and there's probably some good advice in each one of these decks, even if one of them is slightly more appropriate to your situation than the others. And I've also added 3 crystals to aid in your selection. Today I've chosen all white crystals, all high vibration stones. We have Selenite for the first one here. This one is, Mister's decided to give us some more room. Selenite for the first crystal. This one is Quartz, which actually has a little bit of a rainbow sheen to it. And then we have a Herkimer diamond. So all of these very high vibration stones, keeping the energy up and positive for Christmas Eve. So I'm going to give you about 30 seconds of silence so that you can meditate on your choice if you want. And when you have your choices in mind, go ahead and scroll down to the description and click on the timestamp for your particular choice to skip ahead in the reading. So let's go ahead and start the 30 seconds now. Okay, so if you have not already done so, please go ahead and make your selection and scroll down into the description to click the timestamp for your reading. So, for reading number 1, pile number 1, we have the Selenite. If you chose Selenite, you're going to have the Hermit, the King of Coins, and the Wheel in the reverse. Okay. So, Hermit means a little bit of isolation or, at the very least, introspection. You're in a meditative spot, or if you're not in a meditative spot, you are seeking that state. You're seeking this inner life. This instead of being out there and busy with everybody, you're a little bit more of a homebody at this point, and or you're wanting to be, and it's a wonderful energy for self-discovery, for relaxation, getting your head on straight, figuring out what you want in life, and that kind of thing. So beautiful energy. Being that it's New Year's, this may not be exactly where you want to be, but at the same time, there is definitely some perks to this type of an energy. It's not necessarily just like straight up loneliness. If it was in the reverse, it would have a little bit more of a loneliness to it, but this represents a potential to really tap into some good self-care time. You may be feeling a little bit exhausted or ragged or something like that, maybe from work, and looking forward to a little bit of this relaxation time. Or you're seeking it and maybe not getting as much of it as you want, right? So either way, this is a little bit on your mind, and you're being crossed here by the King of Coins. This is likely to mean that there are some responsibilities that are tugging at you, and in particular, King of Coins has a strong financial bend to it, so it's kind of like financial obligations. Got to pay the bills, got to go to work and organize everything in your life effectively to get along, right? So the king is good at this. It's not as though it's a problem. It's just it could be wearing down on you a little bit. You could be feeling a little frustrated with that, and that could be a definite driver toward this hermit energy, where there's also the possibility that you're being asked to do this. It may not be something that you're crazy about. You may not want to be the king of coins, so to speak, to be this entrepreneurial type of person who is really good at getting involved with business and playing the game and that kind of thing. You may not care for that kind of a journey too much, but it is what you are being asked to do. Please don't mess up the spread. So, this is what's kind of challenging you or crossing you here. Now, your advice card is the wheel in the reverse. And the wheel is typically about the sort of cycles of life, and also what seems to be sort of random and natural ebbs and flows and things like that. So in the reverse, it can mean, you may be sort of resisting these cycles, these natural changes, the changing of the seasons, the changing of the year, the months, even the minutes of the day, right? So there's a little bit of a resistance to this time of passage. You may find yourself saying, like, there's not enough time in the day to do what I need to do, and that sort of thing. If you're in that sort of a predicament, just kind of learn to not fight against the stream a little bit, but to kind of fall into the cycles of the day and everything, the natural cycles that are occurring. Fall into them. Find out a way to use that to your advantage rather than to constantly fight against it. And recognize that these things are going to happen, that they are natural, and that there's also a little bit of randomness to the world that is part of that natural cycle as well. So things change, things do, if it's not your season right now, a new season comes. So take some comfort in that, but fully fall into the season that you do find yourself in. If you find yourself in a busy place, be busy. Don't reject that and feel like, oh God, I want to be in a different position than I'm in right now. If instead you kind of just fall into whatever the situation is calling for, whatever, you don't harvest in the early spring, you harvest in the fall. And so a particular pattern of action is required in one time in your life, and another action is required in another. So rather than getting a little thrown off or annoyed by finding yourself in a particular situation, find a way to turn it into a little bit of a positive, or to practice acceptance, because acceptance of a situation changes the nature of it. So I've always said suffering at some level is always a resistance to what is happening. Now, I'm not saying that as a prescription to get over suffering for so many people who are oppressed or being hurt by others, that kind of thing. I don't mean it to be something to be said to those people, but what, if you're sitting at home and you're getting bugged by little things that you don't feel like you should be getting bugged by, it's a little bit of a hint that suffering is in some way resisting what really is, what is naturally just happening, right? And so you can get over a great deal of that suffering by accepting it, or kind of running toward it rather than away from it. And it seems like it ends a lot faster that way too. So not only is it easier to bear, but it's also a lot quicker to get through. So that's about it for card number 1. So for card number 2, if you chose the Aura Quartz, this is for you. Woo. Okay. 10 of Wands in the reverse. I think that came up either yesterday or the day before. Very similar reading to another previous day that we had here. So the 10 of Wands is this is an over encumbered energy. So in the reverse, it's like you're not trying to be over encumbered. You want to get out of that kind of a situation. You want to lighten your load a little bit, have some downtime, and you may feel the need very strongly to have some dead space in your schedule for meditation or for just watching TV or just doing nothing. This is kind of what you're looking for right here, and you may have achieved that to some degree, but this is kind of what your focus is. Now, your challenging energy here is this star. So this is, in a way it's your challenge, but this also can be kind of like help to you as well, because the star represents sort of like trust or feeling like everything is going to be okay. So the over encumbered energy that you may be feeling might come from a need to control the situation a little too much, or to feel like things are a little predictable or safe. And this star energy is a very faithful card. She's pouring out these 2 jugs, which represent the conscious and subconscious. So she's kind of giving up her understanding and just kind of trusting the universe. She's recognized that there's a greater process or plan that's going on, and she's learning to trust it. And by doing that, she frees up a lot of mental energy. She frees up a lot of space or time in her life, because she's not trying to run around controlling everything so much. She's not afraid of certain contingencies. She is able to feel that whatever happens a little bit. And when you have that mentality, all of a sudden your priorities shift a little bit, and you recognize that things that you may have sought very aggressively before were really kind of like running a hamster wheel, or like a rat race. It's things that you're never gonna really feel good about, right? Like, think about your health, for example. There's no limit to the number of things that could go wrong with your health, so you never really could prepare for all of the possible things that could go wrong. And that's a hypochondriac's nightmare, right? That something could be wrong and I wouldn't know about it until it's too late. That's a terrifying thought. But in reality, you can never go through enough medical tests to completely catch all possibility of disease from affecting you. It can't happen. So better sometimes to just live your life instead of constantly worrying about what might happen. Focus on what makes life worth living in the present moment. Why? The question is, instead of like worrying about why you want to go on living, what are you going to do with that life if you get it? What are you going to do with 80 years that you couldn't have done with 60? And so this is a focus on faith, living a faith-filled life, which brings an incredible richness to your life. And it has a way of being a challenge for you here. So, in this position, it could mean that you typically just don't want to live that sort of way. You want to feel safer about things. You want more peace of mind and that kind of thing. So this is a challenge for you, but this is also sort of the answer to this not wanting to feel so over encumbered. So your advice card here is this 8 of Coins. So the 8 of Coins, this is diligent work. This is a very hard worker, but he's also a good manifester. His work is able to produce good results. It's very efficient. So what this is really focusing on is you have a good work ethic. I mean, that's pretty obvious from this. You have a good work ethic. It's not that you are lazy or anything like that. But this is asking to focus your effort, to not just work for the sake of work, as if it's some kind of virtue, but figure out a way to focus your efforts efficiently to get the most amount of things done with the minimal amount of effort, essentially. Now, don't think of the term minimal amount of effort as a synonym for the lazy way. On the contrary, the least amount of effort that you can put into something to get it done effectively allows you to do more. It allows you to free up mental energy. And also, the simplest solutions tend to be the best ones. And nature has screamed that. If you've studied biology or ecology at all, the pathways of evolution and development in nature very, very closely or very strongly convey the idea that the simplest way to do something is usually the best. And not always, but very, very commonly. So this is all about, tempering your efforts so that it's a little bit more effective and you're not wasting a lot of energy, kind of like spinning your wheels, So that's about it for card number 2. So if you picked card number 3 with the Herkimer diamond, pretty cool looking Herkimer here. I have a lot of these. I was able to get them for a really good deal at a local metaphysical shop the other year. So if you picked the Herkimer diamond, you have the 7 of coins, the Judgment card in the reverse, and the 9 of swords. These cards are feeling so familiar right now. Okay, so 7 of coins energy is you're kind of you put in some hard work, some effort, and you're kind of waiting for that to pay off. You're watching it. You're watching with excitement or enjoyment at reaping the success that you have sown, right? So this is a little bit of there can be some impatience that comes with this, but it's all in all, usually you recognize that it is coming, but it might not be quite as fast as you want it to. But in general, the fruit is growing on the tree, so you recognize that it has to ripen before you harvest it and all that. But it doesn't stop the excitement of waiting for this thing to come. It's a recognition of accomplishment. There's been some really good efforts put in here. You've done the right thing, and it will come to pay off. So what's challenging you here is this Judgment card in the reverse. Judgment is, it's not just about logic and it's not just about the facts, so to speak. It is also bringing your experiences into it, your intuition, and all that kind of thing. So in this reverse, it could be that you have been challenged by a little bit of perhaps judgment has not really been your friend so much. You haven't had the best judgment in this situation, or you're kind of refusing to use your judgment, right? So you've been getting some signals of, well, I ought to do this or ought not to do this, but you may have been suppressing it a little bit. You may be kind of going with your head a little too much and not following your heart so much, or your intuition, and that could lead you to some sort of difficulty. This can also be like there could be a project or something that you've been working on, and it's like almost time for it to be judged, right? It's almost time for it to be submitted, and you're not feeling confident about it or ready for it, that kind of thing. That's very common with this card in the reverse. Is this like, I need more time? I'm nowhere near done with this. And it can also be that type of an energy, but more just generally in some kind of aspect of life. Like, I'm not ready to carry on to this next step yet. I'm not ready to go there. I still need more time where I am, right? So your advice card here, you have this Nine of Swords. Nine of Swords is, really it's all about anxiety. And anxiety differs from just raw fear a little bit, because fear has a sort of a good impulse. Fear is a good thing. Don't ever let anybody tell you fear is a bad thing, because fear is a very natural response that is meant to protect you from harm. And it's meant for whenever you sense a situation is not in your best interests, you go the other way. It's a protective thing. Anxiety, however, is not the same thing. Anxiety is, and there's clinical definitions for it, and that's not exactly what I'm getting at when I call it anxiety. I have a specific definition here, and anxiety is really this being worried because you're worried. And you may not even necessarily feel it at first, but if you've had an anxiety attack or some sort of anxiety episode, sometimes there may be some sort of a trigger for the situation, but oftentimes it just feels like you're spiraling out of control and there's no real reason. But if you if you meditate a lot and you're good at paying attention or being aware of what you're thinking, what it comes from is you're afraid. Essentially, there's like a fear of not feeling right or feeling afraid. So it's like fear about being afraid. So you're worried because you're worried, right? Or you're feeling bad because you're feeling bad. So it's this kind of positive feedback loop, and inside your brain it sort of spirals out of control until your neurons are firing like crazy and you're way overwhelmed, and it's just a sensory experience that completely overloads your circuitry, so to speak. And that's really what to me defines the difference between fear and anxiety, outright anxiety. This card represents that very well, because here you have a cat who's run up a tree, and there may have been some very good reason for him to run up that tree, but once he got up there, now there's these little things that are sort of speaking in his ear that are all mean and everything, and this kind of represents his negative thoughts, that while he's up there, while he's feeling all trapped up that tree, his own worries are really making the problem all that much worse. So he doesn't feel safe, even though he's escaped from the situation. He's feeling more and more full of all these nightmarish scenarios that could happen. And so, but if he only looked up a little bit, there's also some good there if he just sort of looks for it, right? So this is difficult to deal with a lot of times, this anxiety, but what it means is that a lot of your problems are more than likely, to a degree, self-inflicted. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't have problems, that your problems aren't real, but it may mean that you are reacting a little bit more extremely to these, to whatever these things are, than you really need to. It's like, when I was a little kid, I was terrified of needles. I would scream as if somebody was trying to take my arm off whenever I would get a shot. And unfortunately, to this day, I'm not really afraid of needles anymore. But if I'm getting blood drawn or something like that, I have a tendency to pass out. And it's kind of embarrassing, because I don't even really feel afraid of them anymore. But there's this knowledge that I have that if I get that shot, I'm probably going to react badly, and it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. And, I've had better or worse luck overcoming that obstacle. But the point of it is that sort of by allowing yourself to feel these feelings of fear and to understand that it doesn't mean that you're broken, it doesn't mean something's wrong with you or anything, that it is a natural reaction, but it should lead you to some positive place. It can help you get out of that feeling of constant self-doubt that spirals out of control. Okay, so that's about it for today's reading. Thank you for watching very much, and I will see you guys again tomorrow on Christmas. Merry Christmas again to everybody. And everybody have a good night, and I'll see you again tomorrow.